have a toaster or...
There we go. Welcome to Superior Stream episode, let's see, this will be episode 17, I believe. Yes, episode 17. Here your host, Mr. Mayo, along with my co-host here, Bodok. How are you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm not doing too well. I believe I got a cold or something from my lady, and I've been doping myself up with every kind of Dayquil, NyQuil, and other various medications to kind of stave off the sickness, as it were. But I'm doing better now.
Yeah, drugs are a good thing in moderation.
Yes, it's good being an adult. You can self-medicate. I've found that out as I've gotten older here. But let me go ahead and grab my show notes, because I've just moved everything around. Although while I'm doing that, you can go ahead and tell me what you've been up to, and by then I'll have wrangled everything.
Not really been up to a whole lot differently. Had a little malfunction with my my main PC over the weekend, so I was down for a couple of days there trying to, well, not really a couple of days, about a day and a half while I tried to get that situated. And then, just been working, staying busy there, and a couple little projects here and there, just still tinkering with the home security camera setup that I got, making it a little better every day. So it got a few more cameras added, and it emails me anytime it detects any kind of motion and that kind of stuff.
On my end, let's see, I'm not doing too much myself for the most part. Like I said, I'm doing research, capturing video. I was gonna go off on one line there, but I forgot what I did. I think it's because I'm so doped up. So, I was gonna talk about the show. We're not currently live streaming. So if you're watching this, you're definitely not watching it live. This is a recorded podcast style show where there may actually be some editing, but like I said, this won't be live. I may insert little bits and bobs of content in between, but probably not for this exercise. This will be the first one where I've done it offline as opposed to streaming, so it'll be a whole new world, but not too much different.
Yeah, and I think the purpose here is to kind of play around with some different formats and kind of find a good balance between what works for us and what the audience likes.
Right, and I think I got quite a few views from the last one. I think we had around, I want to say 20 or so. I don't want to misquote. It was more than I was expecting, but I'm happy for all the views I get. If I do kind of drift off, or I kind of go on a nonsensical route, that's because, like I said, I'm a bit doped up at the moment, high on NyQuil and Dayquil, and like a mix of drugs. But I'll try to stay on point here. Let me first get up, I guess, I like to move right along. We'll get to our first story here of the night, which isn't too new, but it's fairly new. Talking about, of course, the Xbox showcase of the, Xbox One's, future of Xbox One, I should say. Let's see here, and how it's mixing with Windows 10. Let me see, I'll get a link up here in a second.
Yeah, so while you're doing that, I think we kind of briefly talked about something along the lines of this last time, where basically Microsoft's goal is to kind of merge console and PC gaming together, or at least make it, I don't want to say cross-platform yet, because that may or may not be the direction they're going, but it's... they're kind of just turning the Xbox and PC into kind of one. So,
right.
I mean, your console is basically just a dumbed down version of a PC anyways, so it kind of makes sense for them to kind of pull the two together so that they can, hit more of a broader audience.
Right. I just sent you a link for the Tech Raptor article that kind of goes in depth with it here. I'll see if I can't hit on the important points here. I guess in so many words, what he's trying to punch out is, with games being on the Windows platform, he's seeing them being more flexible spec-wise. Is that what you got from that?
It, maybe, but what I'm kind of hoping, and I may be reading into that too much, is if you remember from last time, we were also talking about how Windows 10 is eventually going to support save states for games.
Right.
So you don't actually save the game, you save the state it's in so you can launch it immediately where it was at.
Right.
What I'm hoping to see from this is that the ability where you could be on your couch playing, say Halo, and you pause the game in there and you go to your room and you play it on the PC, or you pick up your phone and you can play it, play a streamed version maybe, or you go to a friend's house or something and you can pick up that same game from there, and just kind of a seamless gaming experience is what I'm hoping that kind of means, or what they're maybe striving for, which, if it's the case, would be really awesome in my opinion, and really innovative, because it would be kind of the first time that I know of somebody attempting to do something like that. But what Microsoft has going for them is that they're really the only ones in a position to be able to do something like that.
Right. And they want their platform to be the ubiquitous one, the one that everybody has, so I guess that they have more of the market. I'm seeing it like I remember all their E3 conferences, they always have like a big thing with sports, social media. That's where I saw the big push in previous E3s. They want it to be, this is the thing you use for all of your stuff, whether it's watching movies, playing games, getting your news. They want their console to be, they want it to replace pretty much your PC almost. It looks like that's kind of what I saw down the road of what they were doing, but maybe not quite where they were at when they were doing those conferences. Is kind of the picture I saw them painting. But
I don't really see it as them wanting to replace your console. Is that they're really wanting to root themselves in as all your devices. Well, take a phrase from a popular game. All your devices belong to us.
Right.
They're wanting to be the one solution for everything, be it computing needs, gaming needs, mobile needs, what have you. And the way they're going to draw people in is that, like I said, and of course I could be just speculating too much into this, but it would be really awesome in my opinion if I can sit here and play a game on my PC, and then I want to go in the living room and sit on my couch and play. I can just pause where I'm at, pick it straight up, and from there, just like I was resuming a movie from one room to the
transition
other.
from one spot to the other with the game.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah. But go ahead.
Oh, and I was just saying, and if they can do that with games, they can do that with other things like programs and stuff too.
Right.
So you can quite easily go from work to home and not ever have to skip a beat, or it opens up a lot of avenues for them to be the end all be all devices. And then that's one of the things that's kept them in such a high market demand or value so far, is that they've been the most popular because the most programs work with Windows and the most hardware works with Windows, and everybody's used to that, and that's what that's what has been ingrained in their computing needs most of their technological careers, so to speak.
Okay, and I guess on a side note to this one as well, let me go ahead and thank Mr. Kyle Downey for that article. Another Tech Raptor article we have regarding Xbox One is the Forza being coming to PC here. I'll pop up a link here in just a second. Nice. But courtesy of Mr. David Strack here, soon to be coming to the Xbox One. Of course, there's Dark Souls 3, which will be a multi-plat for the PS4, the Xbox One, the PC. Tom Clancy's Division, of course, and a myriad of other titles. So I guess this is kind of a grouped up article showing off a couple different things, but basically the point being, that the PC is getting more and more games that traditionally I think many would assume would just be console exclusives. And when folks think of Forza, they think, oh yeah, that's just the Xbox one. But now it's coming to PC, which is good because I actually played the original Forza on the 360, and I actually quite enjoyed it. It was a fun sim racing game. It had a lot of options for customization, and it's like I said, it's definitely not the best game, but for a racing game and it's like a racing sim game, I had quite a bit of fun with it.
I think this kind of comes back to that first article we were talking about, where they're trying to make everything kind of mesh together. So I think eventually it's not going to be a separate Xbox gaming platform and a PC gaming platform. I think it's just going to be a Windows gaming platform or Microsoft gaming platform, so that it makes sense that if it's a Microsoft game or something's released on the Xbox, that it will be on the PC too. I think it just kind of makes sense with the way that I think that they're trying to take that whole idea.
Yeah. Like I said, as someone who games primarily on a PC, it's good news for me because I'm always happy to see a greater diversity of games available on this platform, and this has been, I guess, a long time coming, because I've seen over the past couple of years more and more games that I would traditionally regard as like a console-only style game coming to the PC. We see these things like Arkham Knights and Street Fighter. In my mind, if you'd ask me, are those games that come out for PC? I would say, probably not. Those sound like console exclusives. But it just seems more and more you see more of those more console-styled games coming to the PC, which I'm happy to see.
Yeah, this kind of. I kind of think of it in more than one facet. So, like, to me, this whole Steam OS and everything, controller and everything, came around because, you've got, your old school gamers that pretty much primarily grew up on consoles, who then graduated to PC gaming, who now are kind of going between console and PC gaming. So you've got an older generation that are gamers, but they now have the wallet, so to speak, to be able to afford big screen TVs, home theater PCs, that kind of thing. So I think it's partially a push to hit that crowd, so that they can break into kind of a pseudo console market.
Yeah.
And on that same note, it is to kind of bring PC gaming to kind of a console generation too. So you've got people that do, like, I've got friends that are purely console gamers, and I've asked them, like, what makes you such a hardcore console gamer? And most of the time the answer's been the fact that when they play a game, they want to be able to sit on their couch and relax and play. Even if it's a fast-paced game, they find it more relaxing to sit on their couch and play on their TV versus sit in a computer chair and play. So I think it's partly kind of both things, I guess, is I think why Steam kind of went into that whole market. And just it kind of makes sense. It gives them a better business vantage to kind of get more sales, hit more people, bring more business in. Kind of on a side note, if you don't mind me kind of veering off a little.
Shoot.
On the Steam controller, I was almost about to get one, and I've heard a lot of good things and bad things. One of the good things, though, is that, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but most games, if it doesn't have, even if it doesn't support controller gaming, people have set up profiles for the Steam controller to work. So you can kind of browse the workshops for different games to find actual controller predefined controller configs from the community.
And so it basically acts like you can patch over the game with a player-made mod that allows the controller to act like a controller normally would for a game, is what you're saying, correct?
It's not really a patch, more of just custom mappings and stuff.
Right. Because what in that case, like I said, I'm thinking of there being like say, only keyboard controllers. So you're mapping keyboard controls to a controller as opposed to the keyboard. Correct?
Yeah,
Right.
pretty much. Yeah.
No, like I said, that's good as well. I said not everybody likes to sit down at a keyboard and play that way. I've kind of transitioned to that over time, over these past couple of years, where I don't think I would have called myself a console gamer back in say 2006 or 7 or so. That's about the time when I started getting more into PC gaming, and I gradually moved away from traditional consoles. And like I said, when I first started doing it, it felt very awkward. I think anyone who's only played with a controller then moves to a keyboard, it feels very different, especially for first-person shooters. But for for other games, it does work good. For I guess like strategy games, and more kind of games where you're sitting back and commanding units or something like that. And what was the game that really was like the thing where I kind of moved over? Would have to be probably Left 4 Dead. I know that came out in like 2000, right around 2006 or 2007 thereabouts, right? I want to say.
I'd have to go back and I want to say it may be older than that. Maybe Left 4 Dead 2 came out around then. Here I can probably look here real quick on Steam.
But yeah, I think there was that. Left 4 Dead, Left 4 Dead 2, kind of those. Well, I'd definitely say Left 4 Dead was the one that really kind of brought me in.
It's 2008.
2000. Oh, that came out in 2008.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, what about Team Fortress 2? Let me think about that one.
I want to say probably about the same time.
Right. Yeah.
2007.
Yeah. Okay, that makes a bit more sense because I remember getting really hyped for Team Fortress 2. But. Where was I? Sorry, Dayquil, NyQuil buzz going right there. As we can transition over to our next topic here. This one's more of a rumor mill kind of deal. We have cross-network play possibly finally happening on the Xbox One. Well, we know we're going to get it for the Xbox One and PC. They're saying they would be open to cross-platform play with the PS4. This is, of course, rumor mill territory, so take this with a grain of salt. But this is more of a case where it sounds good to me. Why not do it? If you want to take over for a second.
Yeah, I'm all for cross-platform play. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't mind if you could play a game from Xbox to PlayStation to PC to whatever else. I mean, the more the merrier. I mean, I'm not, I'm no expert on console technology or programming in general, but I don't necessarily know or think that it's a limiting factor on the console itself. I think it's more of just the game developers supporting a feature like that. Because there's been other games that have cross-platform compatibility, and it wasn't necessarily the consoles that dictated that, is them building the feature into the game itself.
Right. This is courtesy of Shabana Arif. Yeah. Basically, they go into. Let's see. I'll read us a little snippet here. In ages past, cross-network play was something we could only dream of, but now it's a reality, as confirmed by director of ID at Xbox One, Chris Charla. The first and most exciting in the list of updates for the ID at Xbox One was a cross-network play. So as well as supporting cross-platform play between Xbox One and Windows 10 Xbox Live games, you'll be able to play with your friends on other consoles and PC networks as well. So they don't specifically outline the PS4, but they're confirming that if the PS4 were, wanting to participate, they would not, exclude it from possible network play. So, like I said, it's in, PC, the Sony's ballpark at this point if they want to play along. I would assume they would, since I don't see any reason for them not to.
The only time I really see this being an issue is with certain types of games like first-person shooters. PCs pretty much always going to have an advantage there because you're just going to have much better twitch reaction with the keyboard and mouse versus controller.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure there's people out there that'll disagree, but I mean, that's always been, a big factor when switching from console to PC is the types of games you play and the controller schemes and macro support and etc. So in the past, like for instance, Final Fantasy 11 did cross-platform with the PlayStation 2 and PC.
Right.
And a game like that would work because it's not, it's not super fast-paced. It was kind of a real-time, turn-based kind of thing, mashup where, you did have some time to react. It wasn't twitchy, and they had an awesome autocomplete translate system, so it made chatting real easy and everything. And I want to say even doesn't 14 support that, or no, not 14. The new Final Fantasy Online support cross-platform as well.
Yes, Final Fantasy 14: Realm Reborn. Yes,
Yeah.
it connects with PS3 players, PS4 players, and the PC. The only issue I have with that is the PS3 and 4 folks have, I think, a built-in voice communication apparatus that the PC folks don't get. It's just, I think it's the Sony's network, whatever. Do you know what the Sony network is called? PlayStation something or another. But yeah, basically whatever their version of Xbox Live is for the PlayStation group, they have built-in voice chat. So I guess
just the PSN PlayStation Network.
There we go. Yeah. So yeah, PSN, you can voice chat with folks, whereas if you're playing the PC version, there's no built-in voice network. Which I don't know why they couldn't just kind of link that in with the PlayStation network. I guess because I guess folks playing on the PC don't pay for the PlayStation network. So
you don't have to actually pay for the PlayStation network though to utilize the voice chat like you would say on Xbox.
I thought that there was like the minimum $4 a month deal they had with the PS4. Did they change that or?
Well, I don't know about the PS4. I know the PS3 never had a fee that you had to pay. Like I'm a member of PlayStation Plus, but that's just so I can get the free games every month. But yeah, it's the only the benefit of being on PC though is that you have a myriad of different choices of VoIP programs to go with, from Skype, Ventrilo, TeamSpeak, Mumble. So I mean, there are ways of still using voice. It's just third party.
Right. I like that option. I just wish that we had the option of using the same network as our PS3/PS4 counterparts had. But what else was I going to say? On a side note, I will talk about Final Fantasy XIV a bit, which I'm kind of taking a bit of a hiatus from. That community doesn't seem too high up on using voice chat. It may just be the style of the game, or it's the way games are nowadays, but it seems very self-contained. So even if we did have access to that voice network, I'm not sure how many people would actually want to talk with me, or just in a group just talk in general, shoot the shit, so to speak. But
I think that's more of the community itself. Like I noticed the same thing when I used to be big on 11.
right.
Final Fantasy 11, there wasn't a whole lot of people in big voice servers. Like I played with a few friends, and actually almost daily, me and two other friends would always probably be on, at least when I was off work. And the one had, me and the one friend would be in a TeamSpeak or Ventrilo. I forget which at the time, but the third person never wanted to get on voice with us, and which was fine, and that was just kind of the rest of the community. It was, I think it's just kind of usually Final Fantasy players are really, I guess, I don't know, I want to say hardcore role playing, but they they just don't seem to want to break immersion, I guess would be the way to put it.
I see. Well, there's that, and I guess I would add, it seemed like if you're going to use voice chat, it's reserved almost entirely for in-the-game play. So when you go to those final dungeons that require everyone to sync up and do very specific actions in a very short period of time, that's where you actually see a lot of the voice chat being used, if it is used. And otherwise, it seems like it's just nobody cares to use it. Like, why would we use it normally? So it's entirely for gameplay, and there's no real social aspect to the voice chat for the most part, from what I've seen in Final Fantasy XIV. And I
So,
oh, go ahead.
there's just something else I was wanting to add to that is that um, Final Fantasy players tend to be a more mature audience, so there's usually less of a need to have to babysit people by telling them what to do all the time. Like usually if you're playing a game that is, as for lack of a better way of putting it, as difficult to, because you got all the skill chains and everything else, most of those people tend to know what's going on, or at least they're easy to instruct because they're used to that type of game. So you can just tell them real briefly what to do, and they've got it. So I mean, maybe that's another reason too why voice chat is a little less popular with that crowd.
Right. And like I said, I'll talk about World of Tanks a little bit, which I've talked about in previous shows. The voice chats for World of Tanks are pretty much the complete opposite from what I've seen from other games, whereas in World of Tanks, there'll be a big group of guys, anywhere from like 20 to 30 guys in the chat, when we're going over a strategy for a map, or, discussing, what our next move will be on this big, think of it like a Risk-style map for moving our tanks around and attacking different regions. They'll have like big diplomacy meetings where everybody's talking. It's a lot more social in my mind. Now, like I said, that can be good or bad depending on how you look at it, but like I said, coming from that kind of game and then going to Final Fantasy XIV, it feels like I'm kind of in a little box all by myself almost, because there's nobody really that's is into the game and talks about the facets of, oh yeah, this tank is so cool this way, this is the way I like to drive it, this strategy, so on and so forth. Whereas in Final Fantasy XIV, it's almost exclusively, in regards to socially, is just talked about via the in-game chat. When I say in-game chat, I'm talking about typing, of course, as opposed to anything over the phone voice transmission. But yeah, that's my piece on that, I guess.
Okay, so up next we'll be talking about the Nintendo NX and its controller, which has been a lot of speculation, a lot of rumor. I think there's a tech demo and some possible leaked photos going around as well.
I think the consensus is it looks kind of fucking goofy. That's what I think. I think that's what pretty much everyone who's seen it thinks. The best way to describe it, I'll post a picture up here in a second, but the controller is akin to the Wii U's controller in that there's an inlaid screen, but there are buttons overlaid over said screen. So your hands will be obscuring part of what you're looking at, but I'm not sure why you'll... I don't know, it's very goofy. It's just the way I'll say it.
I'm kind of curious as to what their actual idea of this is, and I can't necessarily knock it because Nintendo's been pretty good at looking at things outside the box and delivering something that works most of the time. The Wii U, I never found a reason to really get into it except for one or two games, but they've usually been pretty revolutionary. Like, when the Wii came out, nobody really, a lot of people balked at the idea of the stick controller and waving it around, but you know what? It took off and was hugely popular because they had a lot of fun party games and that brought a lot of fun into a lot of different genres that was exclusive to the Nintendo. And then you've got like the GameCube. Their controller was strange at the time, but it took off.
Right.
I
I
mean,
definitely say that the Wii controller definitely got a lot of older people who had not touched a controller in a long time, or in some cases in their entire lifetime, to play Wii bowling or Wii tennis. That really opened up the market for Nintendo in a large place where a lot of folks had figured you could never even go.
oh, and I can't tell you how many times me and friends used to get together. We'd grill out or order pizza, have some drinks, and then just sit there and play Mario Party. Being goofy, doing all the different weird things with the controller for all the mini games. I mean, it was
It's
pretty
fun.
fun.
Yeah, it's fun. That's
So
why it sells.
yeah, and I can't. Yeah, their new controller scheme, it may tank, but then again, when it comes out, it may be the next best thing since sliced bread. That's why I can't. I don't want to knock it until it's actually come out and people have had a chance to actually use it. Because until you get your hands on it, all you can do is speculate. And yeah, it may look like garbage, but their real implementation of it has yet to actually come out. So it could be completely different. And all we've got to work with right now are tech demos, which, those aren't finalized either. They could go through 100 different revisions of that, and it come out looking completely different.
Right. If you look on the screen right now, well, of course, you may not be able to see it, Bodok, but I have kind of a blown-up picture of it here. Is the NX controller. So you'll see the two controller nubs on either side of the controller, and if you look closely, you can just see the tiny A and B buttons on the right side. Like I said, looking at it, the best way to describe it, it's kind of like a oblong oval with two controller nubs on either side of the far ends of the oval. And the interior part of the controller consists, like I said, it almost kind of looks like a rear view mirror, almost. And there's supposed to be buttons inlaid in the screen somehow. It's kind of like, it's really goofy. Now, I'm not condemning the controller. As someone who looked at the Wiimote and said, what the fuck is this? I know Nintendo, they have smart minds working this out so that it does work in a way. It's just a matter of how will it work once, it actually hits the market. Will people be receptive to it? I minimize that a bit. Of course, by Mr. or Miss Summit Parsi. Basically, it's a leaked little picture, and supposedly this may be a hoax, because it highly resembles the Nintendo had a
It was a patent, I think.
yes, a patent. There we go. Patent form. Basically, it looks almost exactly like the patent, where in the picture of the patent it showed an inlaid picture and the buttons and so forth. So it's almost identical to the patent, which you almost never see. Now that doesn't mean that it's fake. It just makes this release a bit questionable.
I think the original patent schematic had palm rests,
Yes.
so it seemed a little more ergonomic. So the biggest complaint I've heard of people is they think that it's just going to be ergonomically garbage and not comfortable to hold.
But like I said, this may just be a prototype still.
True, and my thing though is I'm kind of wondering if they're not sharing kind of a similar goal, which is they may be trying to make console and portable gaming one thing. So, that controller may actually double as their next handheld system.
Well,
So,
my only issue with that is it looks pretty big, and you have those little nubs sticking up, so it's not going to be like a smartphone you can just slip into your pocket.
yeah, but you know what? There was the DS Fat, the DS Lite. I mean, none of their systems have ever been like tiny. But they've worked well. I mean, yeah. The note. See, what makes me think is that may be partially handheld. Like trying to tie in the console into handheld is that the controller sticks that you see on there
Right.
don't appear to actually be that tall. So it could easily slip into a pocket or a pouch or what have you.
I gotcha.
And it would, and it wouldn't be beyond Nintendo to actually try and do something like that, so that they're wrapping their console and portable game system all into one.
Okay.
So that,
Well,
I mean,
assume you're talking to a person who only plays in their smartphone. You're trying to sell that to them. That's what I'm trying to get at. Is a person who primarily games on a smartphone. When they see this, are they going to be convinced? Oh, I better try this out and not worry about my smartphone anymore. That's what I'm thinking. And I don't think you're going to sell this to folks who would usually play like Flappy Bird or whatever, who usually game on their smartphone. Get them to buy this controller just for gaming on the go. I'm sure the regular Nintendo folks and kids will dig it. But as far as grabbing more market share, I don't see this being like the Wii did back in 2000, and whenever the Wii really kicked off. I guess is what I'm getting at.
it wouldn't be too hard to believe that maybe they try and break into the mobile market and make some kind of Nintendo phone.
Right.
That.
Well, that's what I've heard, because I've heard Nintendo's wanting to push out and put their games on the mobile market. So I've been expecting a Nintendo phone to be out for a while. And there's that new Pokemon game as well, which I did on an earlier episode, although I don't think you were here for that one. Basically, where they had Pokemon on the go, and you basically, when you look through your camera phone, you would actually see the Pokemon projected into a 3D space or something along those lines. It was really neat. Like, that got me legitimately hyped for a possible Pokemon on the go kind of game. But that's all we heard from that, pretty much.
Actually, I think there was some more. There's some leaked footage from CES here recently, where it's basically kind of a augmented reality, where you can fight and capture Pokemon in your surroundings, basically.
Right.
Like, did you ever play something like I think Google's Egress, I think, was the game?
No, I did not. But I've seen little snippets of it, and basically you would interact with stuff in the real world through your smartphone's camera. Like, it would put that stuff into the real world, right?
Well, Egress was more like map location based type stuff. So it would actually put stuff like on an actual map that was really relevant to your location, so you could walk down the street and find a node and attack it, and et cetera, et cetera. But there have been some other augmented reality type things utilizing the phone, and Nintendo's actually done the same thing with the DSi. They have some AR games that will use your surroundings to like see ghosts and other things. They'll project it on the screen, but the background will be what is actually coming through the camera.
Right. But like I said, that's when I look at this controller, and I think possibly would they want to make this into a 3DS or DS kind of composite platform. I don't see it competing with phones, because in my mind I don't really see this being like a phone. This is definitely like a handheld console as opposed to like a traditional like tablet / phone device. So, like I said, it's still in the development phase. It may turn out to be completely different than what we're looking at. In fact, the picture that I showed may, like I said, be a possible hoax. It's a very, very interesting picture in either case, but like I said, it's too early to tell at the moment. But like I said, it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Nintendo's pretty popular, and people tend to watch them more closely when their new releases come out, because it's usually not. I mean, you take PlayStation or Xbox, and usually their biggest thing is, you get a more powerful system, better games, or more realistic looking games. But Nintendo's always been about how they're going to implement the console and how you're going to interact with it. It's always been user interaction, at least for the past, at least since the Wii in even the GameCube, some to an extent. Um, it's always been, the person interacting with the device versus the device itself.
I hear you. I guess that's about all I have for the NX's controller. Uh,
Yeah. So I see you've been playing a lot of Star Sector here lately.
yes, I've dumped too many hours, an egregious number of hours into this game. Uh, what is Star Sector though? It's a space exploration kind of. It's going to be a 4X space exploration game, but it's kind of missing the one of those fours in there. It's much in the same style of gameplay, arguably, as Star Citizen or maybe what's the other one, Elite Dangerous. Although instead of it being from the perspective of inside your ship shooting out from there, it's a top-down slash arcadey kind of feel. Um, if you're familiar with Subspace Continuum or maybe Space Pirates and Zombies, uh, either of those games, I guess if you're an older person who's not played any of the more recent, I guess, top-down space shooters, I guess you could compare it to maybe Asteroids if you want to get real old, but it's definitely a lot more advanced than that. Um, but what's kept me playing for so long? Why am I sinking so many hours into this thing? It really comes down to ship customization for me, because you can put all manner of lasers, cannons, and other stuff, non-combat stuff like extra thrusters, additional armor, and various little nitpicky things that are useful in some cases and not in others. So it allows you a real control over what kind of ships you're putting into the battle and how you can use them, whether either for trading, fighting, or something in between. Um, do you want to interject, or shall I continue my tirade on why it's so fun?
No, please continue. I've only took a stab at like one of the first tutorial missions, and
Right.
it's just been a difficult game for me to try and break into.
Right. When I first touched it, I was taken aback. It's a bit difficult to kind of break into the controls. I was actually put off at first. I was like, well, there goes $15. But I was like, no, I'm not giving it a fair play. So I stuck with it. I spent a good couple hours learning the controls a bit better, and getting more used to traversing space and kind of the economy of movement is what I would call it. And I got a grip on how the game really works. And if you'd like, I have a review of it up on YouTube, which I'll post a link to after we get done with this show. Basically, it has what I would call a good risk/reward feedback for exploration. It rewards you for venturing out and capturing bases if you're using mods, or if you're not playing modded. Well, that's almost another topic to get into, mods versus a non-modded version. The game is still under development. So the base game right now is rather simplistic. It's more of just a what's the word I want to use?
Early release.
Well, yes, it's an early release, but proof of concept. It just shows this is what you can do. We plan to do more, but here are just the basic building blocks of what we have in place. So it allows you to build ships, have them fly around, hunt down pirates, and do some trading. But the building blocks are there for you to have more intricate storylines, to have capturing bases, building your own bases. It has the potential to be really cool down the line, but like I said, it's like you said, an early release. Not all the functions are there, but some enterprising modders have made some rather interesting mods. One of them, I guess I could say, would compare to what's that one game that it's compared to quite a bit. I'm trying to think what it's called. Mountain Blade, where you build up a group of ships and you go around and you conquer all of space. And that's what I've been dumping a lot of hours into as of late. Because you go around with your ships, you have Marines on your ships, and they'll jump onto a planet or onto a space station, take it over, and then you own that thing. So you gradually kind of inch your way into the galaxy, taking over more and more stuff, getting access to more and more ships and weapons and so forth, and it's really addicting. A really good Skinner box of just, oh, I have to keep on playing for another hour. And why do I keep playing it though? It has very engaging battles. There's always different ships to shoot, different ways to attack them. Although usually my strategy really boils down to a very simple: put really big ships in there with lots of guns, and just kind of keep them together and just kind of chip away at all their littler ships, and then just team up on their big ones. And it's very pretty with the mods as well. The mods, visually, you get bigger explosions, more fancy effects. So as it is right now, even though it's not completely done as a game, it's really fun, and I would recommend everyone give it a try. It's only $15 dues. That's about like 6.5 McDoubles, maybe thereabouts. So not a bad exchange at all. There are a few, like I said, issues I do have with the game. It can be grindy. If you're trying to explore the galaxy, you'll have to go back, get supplies once you start running low, and go back and forth between places. There's probably a lot of monotony. Once you've killed a lot of ships, you'll start to recognize a few, like, oh yeah, another one of these. So there is an element of grind to it. And of course, there's always the issue of an early access game. Maybe it'll turn out well. Maybe the guy will give up here in a couple of months, and my $15 will have just gone to the wind. But as I see it, I've definitely gotten my $15 worth so far. I've had quite a bit of fun. If you've seen me on Steam lately, it's been a game I've been dumping a lot of hours into, because it's just fun to play. But that's Star Sector. I didn't post any pictures or nothing, but like I said, I'll post a link to the review if you want to look at some actual gameplay footage here after we're done. That kind of tied. Do you have any questions there, Bodok? Or did I talk your ear off well enough?
No, you singing its praises, man. I mean, I would think that you've got a cheating on your girlfriend with Star Sector.
Pretty much. But another game we both kind of dipped our toes into is Black Desert Online. And I'm kind of curious to hear more of your in-depth review of this, since I touched it a little bit, but I'm not sure if I've spent as much time with it as you have.
Sure. I mean, I'll have to admit, I've kind of backed off on playing it some because there's been other things we've been getting into, and I don't really necessarily feel ashamed of that, considering there's no monthly subscription.
Right.
So it's kind of like on the same basis of Guild Wars, where you buy the game and then you just play, and then there are some cash shop stuff, but it's purely cosmetic. You can buy some stuff to like increase your inventory, but you can acquire all that stuff in the game as well, so you don't really have to. Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty fun so far. Usually what I'll do is it's been one of the very few games that I've played that have actually promoted AFK doing stuff. Like, you can AFK fish, you can AFK milk cows.
And for those listening, AFKing basically means you're not playing the game's kind of playing itself, so to speak, correct?
Pretty much. I mean, of course, AFK stands for away from keyboard. And basically, it's these little mini games that, kind of, they're legitimate crafting or gathering skills that you can pretty much do. The game will let you do automatically. And you can just sit there and do something else, go to sleep. I mean, it's not completely free when doing that, because, like say to fish, you have to buy fishing poles or craft them, and they have durability, which gets used up over time. So, like, you can equip a fishing pole, start fishing, go to sleep, wake up, and you'll have fished all night, have some fish, and your fishing rod will be broken, but you can just go buy another one or make another one and go back at it. But it's a nice way that if you're not really doing something, you can load it up, even if you don't really feel like playing, and have it sit there and you can farm a little money because trading is really big with the game. I mean, it's just a good way of making money while not having to actually work hard at it. So it's they've brought some interesting concepts, which has been kind of prevalent in some of the newer Asian or Japanese, or not really Japanese, but just
Korean,
Asian,
I believe.
Korean MMOs in general have kind of started going to some really strange tactics to make the gameplay not as well. It's still grindy because grinding. They'll tell you right away. Grinding is the fastest way to level in that game. The quests and stuff are just for the benefits of like increasing your inventory space and getting knowledge and stuff to progress in the game in other ways. But yeah, it's basically there's not really much of a need to have to buy currency in a game like that whenever you can just sit there and farm the currency and not even have to be at your computer. So it's kind of one way they have of combating gold sellers and stuff.
Right. Well, to kind of touch on your point, the mini games, you do have the option of just letting the game play itself, so to speak. I actually had quite a bit of fun actually fishing. Of course, when we were playing together, there was a boat that came around. Apparently, it was I guess like a trolley that takes you between two different places. And I hopped on the trolley, and it just started going. So I was like, I guess I'll see you later. And it just started carting me off into the ocean. So I was like, I hope this takes me back at some point. And I had a fishing pole with me, so I was like, well, I may as well get some use out of this thing. So I was doing some deep sea fishing, and there's actually a mini game. We have to do button prompts, which the best way I could describe would be like DDR almost, where you have to press up, down, left, right, or whatever, given certain prompts, and you'd catch a fish. And there was almost a bit of a gambling system as well, because you could put down more, as the game calls it, energy points into each cast. And the more points you put down, the higher quality the fish you'd get. So if you were feeling gutsy, you could dump all of your energy points into one cast and maybe get like a really cool fish. So between that and it's like the DDR aspect, the fishing actually looks really fun to me, and that's one thing that may actually end up bringing me back at some point. I didn't get to the cow milking. I did a bit of herbology, or botany I guess you call it, where you harvest plants, but I've not had a chance really to delve into all of the different mini games the game does have to offer. Go ahead and interject. I'm sorry if you're about to say something.
Oh no, I was just going to add that I've got a few alts because running alts in that game is also beneficial because you can buy into nodes, which will allow you to trade, have trade options open.
Of course, to clarify, alts are alternate characters, and these nodes we're talking about are basically parts of trade routes you have to unlock to get more from trading in the world around you. Would that be a honest description?
Pretty much. I mean, there's other aspects to it as well. Like the more you buy into a node, say you go grind in that area that you invested into that node, then your drops are going to be better. So you're going to get more money, more loot, that kind of thing. But you also get the benefit too. Like you can hire workers and send them out to gather stuff for you as well. So you can hire a worker, and you can only send them to nodes that you've purchased, or not purchased, but bought it, invested in to gather stuff like wood, mine for minerals, get harvests, herbs and stuff. You can even send NPC workers off to go fish for you. They pretty much do your crafting for you. So it's a lot of different aspects into like I said, the trading system in that game is pretty huge and what has a lot of people really interested in it. I by no means have been playing the game that heavily, but so far actually, because the fishing part was actually pretty interesting to me too, because I liked the fact that I could come home, because usually after I've come home from work, kind of chill out and wind down for the day. But it's nice because like if there's a show that comes on that I want to watch, I can put my guy to fishing, watch my show, and at least I'll have been somewhat productive in the game and have been able to sit there and watch my TV show or watch a movie and not feel like I've wasted time not playing the game or not been productive because I've been productive in some way.
Okay.
But on that same note too, like I actually worked my way up and I can craft rafts and I think they call it a ferry, not a ferry. I forget what the other. Basically, it's a transport and not really a fishing vessel, but I'm pretty sure you can probably fish off of it. It's just a bigger version of the raft.
Right.
And then if I was to go to a bigger port, I could make like a higher level port. I could make bigger ships and stuff. Haven't really figured out the system completely because there is like a energy that your mounts have, and I know like the horses, you can go out and you can ride around, and as you ride around and run, it takes up their energy, and you can feed them to recover that, or you can put them in the stables and have the stable master recover them for you, so they regain that energy. But the boat has the same kind of energy bar, but I haven't seen a way of increasing that. Although it does take a while. Like I've gone way out several times to go deep sea fishing and come back, and I still have over 3/4 of that raft's energy bar left. So I have to do some reading to see if there's a way I can recover that, or if they just intend on you making new ones every time. But that kind of seems odd too, because you can get skins. You can buy skins off the market for your ship. So,
Right. Well, I was going to say it seemed like you'd either repair it, or maybe is it maybe like repairs over time or something along those lines?
yeah, I'm not sure because like if you check your ship back into the wharf with the wharf master, he doesn't give you an option of repairing it. So, like I said, I don't know. I'll have to look into that some more to see if I'm missing something, or if you just in fact have to make another one. Because after I made the first raft, it actually wasn't that difficult. Once I had to spend a lot of time in actually getting the contribution points to buy the houses to have the different shops. Because like you have to buy a house for your workers, you have to buy a house for your supplies, you have to buy a house for the different facilities like woodworking
Suffice it to say,
facility.
though, it's a very intricate crafting and system to get all this up and going, is what you're getting at, then, right?
Yeah. I mean, and it wasn't necessarily difficult. You pretty much you run around questing and you'll get contribution points. So I mean, it's not hard to get them. You just have to run around doing things, and you'll eventually get them in different ways. You can even get them just by running around talking to people sometimes, gathering knowledge. So I mean, you could call it grindy, but it doesn't have as grindy of a feel because there's so many different things you can do. It is really open. The combat is pretty action based.
Right. It's
Like
very action based, I would say.
yeah, I mean there's different dodging and combos that you can pull off with different key presses and combinations of keys. You can still do kind of a traditional MMO style where you can bind abilities to, your numbers or your gaming mouse or whatever, and execute them that way. But they make it's actually not that hard to do the different combinations and whatnot. I've been playing primarily an archer, and it's been pretty fun. There's there's no real healing class per se. I mean, there's some classes I think that do have some little heals here and there, but the way the combat is, it's kind of like if you've ever played what's the game? I think Terra. Like if you are good at doing your skills and dodges and blocking and etc., you won't really take any damage or much damage, if any at all. So you can solo most things as long as you're paying attention.
Right. I would also point out on a different kind of thing here. The world is very pretty, and if you have a graphics card that can support it, the game can look very, very beautiful, I would say. Um, it's also a very big world. I climbed to the top of a mountain as the first thing I would want to do to see how far can I look out, and it's quite a ways. And the mountains are climbable; they're not just there as set pieces. So if you want to climb the mountains, you can do that. Although there was a batch of harpies at the top of the mountain that I climbed, so I kind of ran back down afterwards because they did not like me up there. Um, it's probably almost too pretty. You may have to turn down the settings not because your computer can't handle it, but because it's really a whole lot of stuff to look at for your eyes. So for me and personally, I had to turn down I think the bloom settings and so forth just to make it a bit more easy on my eyes. It lost a bit of the luster when I did that, but I could actually see the world a bit more clearly when I did that, in my opinion. But no, but definitely give Black Desert a try if you can, if there's a trial. I don't think there's a trial out yet, but if you buy the game, I believe they still have the 7-day pass, don't they? Or do they?
Yeah, if the base package gives you 1 7-day pass, the higher tier, if that's still available, gives you 2.
Yeah.
I think I bought the higher tier because it gives you like a free tier 3 mount and some other stuff. Um, and so I've still got an extra 7-day pass. But if you check the forums and stuff, there's a lot of people that will just give those out so people can try them. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, give it a try. I mean, it's not that much money, and there's no sub, so you're getting a pretty quality title for the price of a movie and a snack. It's and to me that's kind of what I judge a lot of my gaming on is if I was to compare this to me going to the movies and buying a popcorn and a drink, you're going to spend at least $15 on a movie. If you do popcorn and drink, another $10 or $15. So you look at the time. Your average movie is a couple hours. How much gameplay you're going to get out of the game. Several hours, if not hundreds. So
Yeah, I'll go over my McDouble math with you here in a bit if we get around to that part. Let's see. To kind of, I guess, move us into the direction of cringe, the new Ghostbusters trailer, I don't know. I don't know where to start. It's, of course, if you're not familiar, the new Ghostbusters movie coming out, it features an all-female cast, and it looks like they're trying to, if the way the trailer goes, it kind of almost blocks it as a sequel, but it's not a sequel. That's what they've said. So it's a movie masquerading as a sequel is the best way I will put it. And I'm from what I've seen, I hope the movie does better than the trailer has did, because my goodness, it's very cringy. I did not like the trailer at all.
yeah, they've taken the humor and gone a completely different direction from the originals than I would have hoped. I mean that's the thing, and that's the danger of doing reboots or whatever, is that they are in some cases completely different. But in this case, from especially the newest trailer, it's more slapstick humor style than the actual humor from the originals actually was legitimate and meant something and was actually
it's very 2000s humor, whereas the original Ghostbusters, you actually had jokes based off the characters and their situations rather than arbitrary jokes just made from physical comedy. Like, there was physical comedy in the original Ghostbusters, but it was intermingled with how the characters interacted with one another. Whereas with the previews and with the trailers of this new Ghostbusters, I feel it feels very forced, is the best way I can put it.
Yeah, I mean, at one point you've got a woman bitch slapping a ghost out of another woman. I mean, it's yeah, it doesn't leave me with very high hopes. I mean, I'll probably see it And honestly, if I'm going to see it in theaters, it will be a matinee because I'm not going to spend a whole lot of money on this to see this in theaters.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I'm with you. It's very cringe. It makes me cringe. I don't have a lot of high hopes for the way or the direction it looks like they're taking it. Uh, they're 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 making it too much about the humor and not like it was a funny sci-fi action-ish type movie. Um, well, I don't know. I don't even know if I'd consider it action, but it was a sci-fi movie with humor versus this is just a comedy with a little sci-fi.
Right. I feel like they're using the Ghostbusters name alone to sell it. Like they could have just had this be 2016. Four girls team up to, take care of wacky antics in New York, like, and just had that movie. But they basically just slapped the Ghostbusters feel on it, and oh, you gotta see the new Ghostbusters movie. No, it's this. This is not Ghostbusters. These are four chicks masquerading as the Ghostbusters and doing a poor job of it. And I don't want to come off as sexist either. Like, I would happily endorse a movie with an all-female cast of Ghostbusters if they could make a quality movie. But it's just from if the trailer is any indication, I I'm not having really too high hopes for what the movie's going to turn out to be at this point.
Yeah, I mean, like, have you seen? Shoot, what was that movie? With the oh, my mind just drew a complete blank. It was about a wedding. Had two of the main Ghostbuster women were the main characters in this movie, and they've always been big hitters in comedies, but yeah, I just
Right.
don't think I don't think that what they're the vision or the direction they're taking this movie is really going to work for it. I think it's going to tank.
Yeah. And what's worse is, the Ghostbusters brand, Harold Ramis and what's his, who did the Coneheads? I'm trying to think of his name. But yeah, Harold
Yeah,
Ramis was the writer, and his friend, they both worked. They put a lot of love and energy into the original Ghostbusters, and arguably Ghostbusters 2 as well. Although you can argue Ghostbusters 2 wasn't that good, but I think by comparison, this movie is going to end up making Ghostbusters 2 like Academy Award winning uh, when it does come out, and I feel like they're ruining the brand, so is you can't really do much else with the Ghostbusters after this, and I don't know. Would I be wrong to say that maybe they should have just left the Ghostbusters brand alone and let the first and second movies just be on their own? Or would you think there'd be any way to rejuvenate the franchise? And if so, is this the way to do it?
I think it's possible. I mean, other movies have done it somewhat successfully. I mean, Star Trek, Jurassic Park. I mean, there's been others, but I mean, I think it would have been possible um, if it was done properly. But I will go as far as saying I will predict that this movie will never make it as a to the cult classic standard that the original Ghostbuster movies have been. Like, I don't see it, 20 years from now being a movie that people will still watch. Because even today, Ghostbusters come on, sure, I'm going to watch it. Because it's a cult classic. You can't, those movies like that, you can't help but watch if they come on. Really, I mean, it
Yeah.
is because it's for one, it's ingrained in your childhood, and two, they're such great and well done movies that they really hold up to time. They stand the test of time really well, and they just they keep their they keep their relevancy well into the future, and I just don't see that being the case with this one.
Yeah, I was gonna say with Harold Ramis, Dan Aykroyd. I can't believe I forgot his name, but like I said, I think it would have almost been better, like I said, if they just made a comedy movie with these four lady actresses, had them do their own thing. Maybe it would have been. I'm not sure how it would have turned out, but I feel like they're just using the Ghostbusters name, and that's about it. Like I said, this is Ghostbusters in name only, and the rest is going to be their physical 2000s, 14, 16 comedy style for this movie, and I have no hype for it. And some people are excited. I am not one of those people. I'm just seeing it as a mess. And like I said, I feel bad for Harold Ramis. God rest his soul. as they burn his physical property, or not physical property, but
Intellectual.
intellectual property to the ground. But again, the movie's not released yet, so hopefully, God willing, maybe it'll actually be good. Maybe this trailer is just a smokescreen, and it's actually like a hit classic we don't even know about yet. I sincerely doubt that, but seeing how the movie's not been released yet, you can't really say anything yet, I guess. But the trailer, damn, that trailer.
Yeah. I mean, it could shock us all and could be the best thing ever. I kind of doubt it, but that's not to say. I mean, I would probably laugh at the movie because there will be some humor there, but it's just not going to be the same. So, so it looks like there was another movie you wanted to talk about.
Yes, this one. It's already been released. I'll see if I can put it up here. It's, I think, a couple of months old, maybe a bit older than that. Called Ex Machina.
Yeah, it's been out for a while.
Yeah, let me see if I can.
I want to say probably 2 or 3 years or more.
Let's see. Coming soon. What was that? Yeah, but written and directed by Alex Garland, the writer of 28 Days Later, Ex Machina. I recently saw it. It's how to phrase it. It kind of tackles the same territory as that one movie, Her. Where the guy has the love affair with his phone. So you're seeing this a bit more and more, I think, recently, is interactions between people and AI devices. In the movie Her, it was about him talking to the AI device on his phone. In this movie, Ex Machina, it's about him conversing with this, this female android, cyborg, however we want to phrase it here. And the premise is he's trying to pass her on a Turing test, or like a guy who has made her is running a Turing test, and he's having a dude talk to her to see if she can fool him, so to speak. And I watched it with my lady. It's good performances from the guy as well as the AI lady. She does a very good performance as well. Very interesting effects. Let me see if I can grab their names here real quick. The guy who's like in charge of things, the guy's named Nathan. He's like a Google exec kind of guy. They kind of paint him as the villain, but it's not overdone to the point where it feels kind of catchy, or not, what's the word, forced. Yeah. The other character they have, Caleb, is the guy doing the Turing test, and he's trying to look into the lady whose name is Ava, and she's the AI cyborg lady. So basically it's a very tight performance between all these three characters. You don't really see any other people for the rest of the movie. And basically they're, how would I say? It's very isolation feeling, like they're in a remote place doing the test, and the interactions between Nathan and Caleb and Ava are like very kind of cut in between one another. So you get very like close looks at each of these interactions. So it's really about the characters, and the characters do bring it together, I think. I would definitely recommend giving it a watch. I think it falls short a little bit in the story department. The end is a bit of a surprise, but not really. You kind of see the story going in that direction. I won't spoil it though, but suffice it to say, things don't end well. That's all I'll let loose. In my mind, I found it more philosophical than scientific. Like scientific wise, they could have touched on more issues dealing with AI that they just kind of gloss over and let you fill in the blanks for yourself. And there was a lot of stuff they could have did but didn't do. So I'm imagining if this is a Blu-ray, you'll find a whole lot of extras that kind of got left on the cutting room floor. Because in my mind, it had room to be a really very deep, interesting movie, but they only had so many hours to play with, and what you get is what you get. Is how I felt it was done. But like I said, not a bad movie, and like I said, I definitely recommend if you've not seen it to give it to watch. If you're into movies that touch on science and technology and AIs and stuff. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good movie myself. I agree. It could have been a lot deeper, but I understand why. Because I mean, time was a factor. They probably were afraid of how well the reception for the movie would have been. I think it probably would have been a good two-part or trilogy even. Trilogy may be a bit of a stretch, but there was enough story there that it could have been stretched out over two movies easy.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I was gonna say they give you a lot to work with, like in terms of background and other like set pieces that they just kind of like walk right by, so to speak, and you don't really get to touch on them. And so it does a good job of letting you fill in the blanks. I just wish that maybe they had touched on a few more of those blanks in the movie, as opposed to letting you the watcher kind of having to do it all yourself, so to speak.
Yeah, and for those who don't understand what or know what a turning test is, basically it's a test devised to be able to tell if technology, or in this case AI, is indistinguishable from that of a human. So it's usually like a series of tests and whatnot, or questions to be able to determine if you won't be able to tell the difference if this is a human or if this is a machine programmed to answer or respond to questions in a particular way,
Right.
which people have been doing for a long time now, and there's been some very clever programs written with able to almost pass a turning test and answer in different ways and in inflections and stuff. But yeah, I mean, basically that's the whole point, is to be able to I think to be able to actually say something is artificially intelligent, that it has to be able to pass that turning test, so you can legitimately say that it is indistinguishable from a human mind.
Let's see. That leaves us with let's see. Let's see. Piracy and No Man's Sky. I don't know. We can do either or which one do you want to do first?
I guess we can hit on the piracy topic.
Piracy. Oh man. Let's see. Like I said, this is more of an open-ended discussion. But do you want to go first, or shall I jump in?
Let's hear your thoughts on it.
Piracy. I don't actually pirate that much stuff. I'm trying to think of stuff that I have pirated in the past year or so. The only thing I can really say that I do pirate in any significant amount would be movies, and even then I don't do that too much. It's mostly just movies, I would say. And when it's not, if I'm not pirating movies, I'll just watch them on Netflix, because usually Netflix has what I'm looking for in terms of entertainment of that nature, that or YouTube. So for me, I can't think of anything really piracy is used for unless it's something really hard to come across. The best examples I would think of, let me pull back here, are games that basically you can no longer find anywhere else. Are you familiar with the Jurassic Park game?
Vaguely.
Well, of course, there's a bunch of different Jurassic Park games, so let me go ahead and be a bit more specific. There's actually a Jurassic Park simulator that came out, I want to say, in like the early 2000s, and it was actually pretty cool, but and this is a topic I've touched on before in the stream, but I'll go over it again. It's a park simulator, and it enjoyed a limited release for a little while, and then it just kind of disappeared. But it was very popular when it was released, and let me see if I can't pull up a link for it right now, because I didn't actually think I'd be going into this, but Jurassic Park. Right now, it retails on Amazon. I think at the cheapest, being around $300 or $400. Jurassic Park, and again, this is a PC game released back in, I want to say, like in the early 2000s. So you're basically paying almost as much for like 2 Nintendo DSs. You can get this one PC game, and that was released in 2000 or so. So realistically, I could buy that game if I wanted to. I have the money, but is that, I don't know, would that purchase be equivalent exchange for the amount of fun I'm getting from that game? I would argue no. So that's a game that I pirated. It's an old game. You can't really find it anywhere else, and I have no reasonable expectation to find it at an affordable price anywhere. And that's just one game. That's a drop in the bucket. There's lots of other great PC classics that don't have a place on Good Old Games or Steam, that are just kind of lost to the ether. And unless you're willing to pay exorbitant amounts of money, they're basically gone forever. And those are the instances where I think piracy is definitely an option that you should consider. I mean, otherwise, literally, the games will just disappear forever. And whether what am I doing by pirating the game? I know about it, and I can tell other people, hey, you should try this game. I guess I'm starting to trail off here. Would you like to cut in and kind of take over for me here? Let's see if you can complete my point.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think basically the point that you were maybe trying to get to is that when do you consider it okay, or if it's okay to pirate? And I would say that's a good time, or some time that I would say it's a good example of when I would say it's perfectly legitimate by my standards to pirate a game. I mean, if it's no longer being sold and then there's no servers or legitimate means of getting it, then sure. Because I mean, the money that you buy it for on Amazon, that's not going to go to the developer. That's going to a third party.
Right.
So, I mean, if the developer's not getting the money, then why not pirate it? Because they're not getting the money either way. On the same note, I'd have to do some research because I didn't think about this until you were just talking about losing games to the ether. But I had heard there was a podcast I listened to many years ago that was actually interviewing a group of people that were archiving dying or dead games, so that there would always be a means of playing them again or getting back into them. And I can't remember the name of the group, but and I'll see if I can find something maybe for next episode. But there are things like archive.org. There is a ton of old games that you can play straight off the website, like Doom, Oregon Trail, Microsoft Golf 1998 edition.
Right. Well, those I think are, like I said, Doom and Oregon Trail. Those are more known about. But there's also a lot of games that they're kind of hidden, I would say. Good Old Games has done a lot of great work in that regard, bringing light to a lot of these older games that just kind of got lost. But even then, Good Old Games doesn't cover everything. And that's what I'm afraid of losing. Like, there are some really interesting, cool games out there that are, for all intents and purposes, just disappearing. Kind of like how old silent movies, after a certain era, like, people just stopped giving a shit, and then they just kind of got lost, and nobody can find them anymore. There's like a lot of great silent films that are just basically gone forever because they've rotted to dust, and nobody gives a shit. Yeah,
I mean, I think what falls victim to this more even is like your MMOs or your online games. Like when those servers get turned off, even if you were to be able to pirate the game, unless somebody's developed a server, a third-party server, or something, an unofficial server to play it on, and have been able to patch the game to play on said third-party servers, then you lose a lot of those good quality online games like you know Final Fantasy 11. I'll admit now that I play on a third-party server from time to time because I spent a lot of time. There's a lot of memories in that game, and it's still a fun game and a lot of good qualities and aspects to it. If you can get around the dated graphics, even though they were good for their time. I mean, if it wasn't for those third parties developing those ported servers, then you wouldn't be able to enjoy games like that have died off. And I mean, there's been a lot of other things like Halo Combat Evolved. Those servers went offline a while back, and that was still, there were people that sat online for those to be shut off. But I mean, there's people still playing that game. Combat Evolved. It runs great on most things, and yeah, I mean, it's something that I think hasn't probably been looked at enough, or with enough has enough presence to really start some serious conversations about the preservation of some of these games and some ways of making them available to the masses, because
Yeah.
there is a big market for nostalgic games.
Well, yeah, there's that as well. And a question that comes to mind is, what is the consumer entitled to? For instance, let's talk about Black Desert. It's a great game, I'm sure. Do you expect it to be online indefinitely?
No.
Right. So at some point, no matter what all of your great achievements, they'll be for naught because eventually they'll shut down the service. So there could be 5 or 6 years, maybe if it's lasted a while, maybe 10 or 11 years. But at some point, they're going to say, well, this game is done well, but we're done with this game, and they're going to shut down the servers. So could you really emulate that game, by itself, or would you even want to? Because a lot of people would argue that the spirit of a lot of these current console generation games or PC games are the actual communities that make them up. So would you really have the same Black Desert game without the people playing with you in that universe?
I'd say it's a good possibility because if you're playing that game for that community and you've developed a community with that game, then those are the same people who would want to continue playing even after the servers go down. So that would be the people that would look to other means of playing through some third-party manner.
A fair point. I played a lot of PSO Blue Burst, which I've talked about before on this show, on a private server because Sega shut down the official ones. They shut down the ones for PSO as well as Phantasy Star Universe, and at some point they'll probably shut down the ones for PSO 2 as well, but at the moment I think it's doing pretty well. But yeah, a strong community there as well. I spent a lot of time playing PSO offline because I used to live out in the boonies, and to be honest, I just did not have the internet or the funds available to play a game online with a subscription fee. But with PSO Blue Burst, the private server was free to play, and given its age, you could realistically play it on dial-up without too many hiccups. So really, I would argue that was my first foray into an online game where I'm playing with other people. Let's see. Sorry, Dayquil, NyQuil Buzz here. And that really sparked my imagination of what you could really do online games. I'd played Battlefield 2 on a friend's computer, so I'd seen what it was like. But to really, talk with people, play with people online, PSO was really my first departure there, albeit on a private server, and I'm glad I was able to play on the private server, because otherwise I would have never known what it was like to play with other people in that game. Because up until that point, I just played it offline for a sinful amount of hours, like too many hours to count. Oh, goodness. But if you want to interject, I was going to pull up, let's see, I'll post it back up here on the screen, which is the price for Jurassic Park Genesis or Operation Genesis. For PlayStation 2, it clocks in at $199. You know, goodness gracious. If you want the PC version, it's going to be $394 new. In some cases, it's cheaper, $119 used and new. But still, you know, I would have trouble paying more than $10 or $20 for this game. You know, and they're wanting, you know, these exorbitant, you know, $100+ for a PC game that was released in the early 2000s. You know, and like you said, this money's not going to the original developers. This is going to, you know, third-party sellers and so forth. And I can't find anyone who would rationalize that purchase unless you were like a very hardcore collector.
Yeah, I mean that's the only person I can see buying something like that is if it were a collector and it was in the original box or something along those lines. But yeah, if somebody's wanting to play that game, it's, you know, there's so many games out now that even if I was desperate to play it, I just couldn't justify spending that money on that game.
Yeah. I guess that's about as much as we would go into. We can talk about piracy again sometime. Was there any other thoughts you had, or is that about cleared up? All right.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. The only thing that I might add would be that have you ever heard of a game called Punch Club?
Punch Club. No.
Well, there's been a lot of talk. It's basically like a little pixel art tycoon type game. Or
wait a second, I think I did see this. Yes, and the pirates are they've sold I think like 30,000 copies, but it's been pirated over like 100,000 times or something like that.
No, there's I think one of the last articles I saw talked like there was 300,000 legitimate purchases of the game.
Damn.
And 1 million copies were pirated on PC, and
okay, so I was off by a couple zeros. I gotcha.
Yeah, and half that on mobile, and I think like 80 or 90% of the mobile was on Android. So yeah, it's been kind of interesting. The funny thing is they got this information because they actually embedded tracking code in the game itself to basically call home with every install. So you know, even pirating it and installing it through pirated means, I guess evidently they weren't taking out this tracking bit of code, so it was still calling home and reporting that there were pirated copies being installed or distributed. What was interesting, though, is I think a lot of it was because of regions and like a lot of overseas pirating. But yeah, it just goes to show that it's a pretty good example, I guess, of how a lot of developers actually lose a lot of money due to pirated copies of games. And then you'll have the big argument that, oh, well, you know, if they may not have had a trial or something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, it's there's two sides to every coin, and they do have a lot of argument as to a lot of money lost due to piracy. But I don't know. I guess it's always going to be kind of a gray area, so to speak.
Like that, as opposed to what we were talking about, like PSO and Final Fantasy 11, those are older games. This is like a brand spanking new game, right out of the door, more or less. I know it was released. You said like a couple months ago.
It hadn't been long.
Right. So for the most part, people are still, when they buy it, their money's going to the developers as opposed to some third party publisher or something like that. Right.
Right.
So I guess in the most sincerest form, this would be the bad kind of piracy. But like you were talking about, it may be a case of the game simply not being available in certain locations. And Gabe Newell talked about this when he was going over piracy. Like he said that it was a symptom of a problem, not the problem itself. So they like I remember Gabe Newell said they'd recorded like a lot of piracy of their games taking place in Russia, and that was because a lot of the games that they released weren't out in Russia until a couple months after the initial release, and they received a poor translation. And what would often happen is Russian pirates would get the game, translate it better than the translators, and have it out a lot faster than they could distribute it. So what Steam tried to do, they just made better translations and had universal releases kind of be billed as their answer to counter piracy, and that solved a big portion of their Russian piracy problem, from what I heard.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors to it, but region issues, I think, are probably one of the major ones. Some of the other ones maybe sometimes price point, or the fact that, I mean, I know a lot of people that have pirated a game and then turn around and bought it.
Yeah, the unofficial demo, as it is called sometimes.
Yeah, and so I mean, there's a lot of developers that will eventually make their money back because of situations like that. But yeah, it's. I mean, you can even get this game on Steam. I think it's like $10. So I mean, it's not an expensive game, and it's gotten a lot of good reviews and whatnot about it. But yeah, it's pretty funny that the game has been pirated more times than it's been bought, and it being a brand new game with a fairly decent price point. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't buy this game unless it was like between $3 to $5 personally, and that would be just because I want to buy it on a whim. This wouldn't be a type of game I would actually sink a lot of time into, but I mean, that's probably a discussion for another time as far as like how much money you can legitimately ask for a game, or how much you would expect to pay for something.
Let's see. I think that's everything we got for you tonight, folks. If you're still listening in, if you're hanging in there at over an hour, I guess my tangent would be McDouble math. And this is completely unrelated to everything else we've talked about tonight. McDouble math, whenever I try to convince someone of something, like you said, you have your movies and popcorn analogy. Mine is McDouble math. And basically, I convert whatever the price is of the object of desire into McDoubles. And how many McDoubles would that be? So, for instance, if there's a game on Steam that's like $7.99, I do the math in my head, and that's like 3.5 McDoubles. or if I want to buy a new PC component, like a new controller, say it's $50, that's like 23 and 2/3 of a McDouble or something. And so I do this quick McDouble math in my head to rationalize purchases, or if I want to convince somebody, like, dude, that's only like 6 McDoubles, you should buy it. So that's my McDouble math. And like, so you have your movie popcorn math. Do you have any math like that you use for convincing people to buy stuff? is my tangent.
I've never really put that much thought into it, besides the fact of like comparing entertainment value of a game versus entertainment value of a movie. So usually when people have come to me and said, well, how can you spend $60 on a game? I'm like, well, that's about what I would spend to go see 2 or 3 movies. So in the long term, as far as my time versus money, I'm getting more entertainment value out of the average $30 to $60 game than I would be out of going to a 2-hour movie. So it kind of plays out in the long run. But yeah, I mean, your math is impeccable as well. I mean, it's a good way of rationalizing a purchase, if you can break it down. Like, well, if I don't really want to spend this $15 on this game, but what if that means I just don't go eat Chinese one day? I eat a sandwich at home instead of going out to eat. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to justify some purchases that way.
Yeah, I don't actually eat that many McDoubles nowadays, but I still use McDouble math because it's just something like a leftover from a bygone era, I would call it. Like I guess back in college, that's how we'd always argue with one another whether something was worthwhile. It's like, I don't know, dude. That's like $20, but then they'll be like, but dude, no, that's only like 10 McDoubles. Come on. You know? So I was like, all right, fine. And but back in college, I would down McDoubles like nobody's business. So that was like almost a second currency. So like if I wanted to take somebody out and they didn't feel like it's like, come on, dude, I'll buy you a McDouble. or they'd convince me like, come on, we got to do this. Here, I'll buy you 2 McDoubles. I was like, all right. And it was like a secondary barter system on top of our regular monetary system. It was just fucking goofy.
Oh yeah.
But that's my McDoubles math tangent, I guess. But I think that's about all I have for us tonight. Let me go ahead and I'll cue up our music here in a second. Before I start blasting that stuff, was there anything else you wanted to plug for yourself or for us or anything like that?
I just like to put it out there that I know we've got a few people that have listened to past shows, or past shows in your case. But if you got any comments on something you would like to hear, or tell us how you like the format, or anything at all, or if you just want to say hey, let us know. We'll check out the comments and report back.
Lovely. And so this is the first show where we're doing not live, but slowly recording here on my end. So I'm gonna chop this up. I'm probably gonna cut out some of the parts where we meander for a bit, or if I think we're drag on for a topic too long. And like I said, you may not even hear this. Like I said, I'll decide to leave this in or not after the fact. But definitely like, subscribe, press all the cool buttons. Like I said, we're going to try to get 2 shows out a month as opposed to the one that I was doing. We'll try to bring you some of the best content we can. But I'm not working on anything else in particular. But I'll try, and if I am putting out any new content, I will definitely let it be known in these show notes. But thanks for watching, and listen to our lovely outro music here. And I think we're done. See you later, folks.
See ya.